Hello everyone. Today, we're traveling to Norway, a country with stunning landscapes and a rich history. In this video, we'll hear the heroic story of the Norwegian resistance during World War II and explore the incredible attractions of this beautiful country. Are you ready to join us? The long and detailed story of Norway's resistance during World War II. On the quiet morning of April 9, 1940, something unimaginable happened in Norway. The country, known for its neutrality and peaceful existence, was suddenly plunged into chaos. It began when German bombers darkened the skies over Oslo, signaling the start of an invasion. Nazi Germany, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, had set its sights on Norway for several strategic reasons: control of the icy waters surrounding the North Sea, domination of key shipping routes, and access to Norway's vast natural resources, particularly iron ore. At the time, Norway had been unprepared for such a bold and aggressive move. The country's small military was no match for the well-equipped German forces. Within hours, Nazi forces stormed major cities, seizing control of ports, railways, and airports. The aim was to take Norway quickly and without much resistance. King Haakon VII, the government, and key political figures were immediately forced into a dilemma: should they surrender and save lives, or should they resist, knowing full well the costs would be immense? The king's choice. King Haakon VII, a figure of unity for the Norwegian people, faced one of the hardest decisions of his reign. As the German forces moved swiftly toward Oslo, they presented an ultimatum: surrender or face the consequences of brutal warfare. The Nazi regime intended to install a puppet government under Vidkun Quisling, a Norwegian politician who had betrayed his own country by aligning with the German invaders. But King Haakon was not one to capitulate easily. Despite knowing the overwhelming strength of the German army and the vulnerability of his own forces, he made a decision that would forever cement his place in Norway's history. He refused to surrender. In a bold speech broadcast across Norway, he said, "For my part, I cannot accept the position of king under such conditions." This refusal set the tone for what was to come. The royal family and the Norwegian government fled Oslo, retreating northward to avoid capture, but their refusal to surrender ignited the spirit of the Norwegian people. Resistance was the only option now, even though the odds were against them. The early days of occupation. The first few weeks of the German occupation were devastating. Norwegian forces, though brave, were no match for the sophisticated military might of the Germans. Battles erupted in Narvik and other key areas, but soon the Germans had effective control over much of Norway. Despite this, the resolve of the Norwegian people began to harden. The Nazis moved quickly to impose strict regulations, transforming life in Norway into a constant struggle. Public gatherings were banned, newspapers and media were censored, and anyone suspected of opposing the occupation was arrested or executed. The dreaded Gestapo, Hitler's secret police, established a strong presence in Norway, spreading fear throughout the population. Despite these terrifying conditions, a grassroots movement began to take shape. The resistance wasn't just military, it was cultural, spiritual, and psychological. People refused to accept the new regime. Citizens began wearing paperclips on their clothing as a symbol of unity and defiance, subtly telling the Nazis that they were bound together in resistance. Operation Gunnerside. The battle for heavy water. As Norway struggled under occupation, the Allied forces were desperately trying to prevent the Nazis from developing nuclear weapons. Norway played an unexpected but critical role in this battle. Deep within the mountains of southern Norway, the Vemork hydroelectric plant, near the town of Rjukan, produced a rare and valuable substance, heavy water deuterium oxide, which was essential for the Nazi atomic bomb program. The Allies knew that if Germany succeeded in building an atomic bomb, the war could take a devastating turn. But how could they prevent it? This led to one of the most daring sabotage operations in history, Operation Gunnerside. In February 1943, a group of Norwegian commandos trained by British Special Forces parachuted onto the snowy Hardangervidda Plateau. These commandos, mostly young men in their 20s, had been carefully chosen for their knowledge of the area and their determination. Under the cover of darkness, they skied across the frozen wilderness for days, battling blizzards and sub-zero temperatures. When they finally reached the Vemork plant, the commandos faced the daunting task of breaking into a heavily guarded facility. With courage and precision, they managed to sneak past the guards, place explosives on the heavy water storage tanks, and escape into the night before the explosions shook the facility. This sabotage was a critical blow to the German nuclear program and is still remembered as one of the most successful resistance missions of World War II. But the bravery of these men also inspired the broader Norwegian resistance, proving that even under the heaviest of occupations, small acts of defiance could have a monumental impact. Life under occupation. While the famous sabotage of Vemork was taking place, life under occupation was growing more difficult. The Nazis aimed to reshape Norwegian society to fit their ideals. Schools were forced to teach Nazi propaganda, Norwegian soldiers were sent to fight for Germany, and Jewish families were rounded up and deported to concentration camps. Despite these efforts to control and subdue the Norwegian people, the resistance only grew stronger. The underground resistance movement, known as Milorg, flourished. Norwegian patriots risked their lives to pass intelligence to the Allies, shelter escaping prisoners of war, and sabotage Nazi infrastructure like railroads and factories. Ordinary citizens found ways to resist, from small acts of defiance like refusing to salute German officers to participating in more dangerous operations such as hiding Jews or producing illegal newspapers. The darkest hours. In late 1944, as the war dragged on, the Nazis grew increasingly brutal. They began executing captured resistance fighters and using Norwegian labor to build their defensive positions. Food shortages worsened, and the harsh Norwegian winters added to the suffering. Yet the resilience of the Norwegian people was unshakable. In the northern parts of the country, the Soviet Union began to push back against German forces, and hope slowly returned. As Nazi Germany's defeat loomed, the liberation of Norway drew closer. Liberation and aftermath. On May 8, 1945, the long-awaited news came: Germany had surrendered. For Norway, this meant the end of 5 years of brutal occupation. When the royal family returned to Oslo, King Haakon was greeted with jubilation. His refusal to surrender had kept alive the hope of a free Norway throughout the darkest days of the war. The scars of the occupation were deep, but the story of Norway's resistance became a source of pride and unity for the nation. The sacrifices made by ordinary citizens, soldiers, and members of the resistance helped shape the future of the country. Norway had stood against one of the most powerful and terrifying regimes in history, and had emerged free. Conclusion. The Nazi occupation of Norway during World War II was a period of intense suffering, but it also revealed the strength, courage, and resilience of the Norwegian people. From King Haakon VII's refusal to surrender to the heroic sabotage of the heavy water plant, the resistance efforts of ordinary Norwegians played a crucial role in the Allied victory. This story of defiance and unity in the face of overwhelming odds serves as a testament to the enduring spirit of Norway, a country that, even in its darkest hour, refused to bow to tyranny.